that's really fun, you want to do it again. So that little lighting exercise right here, just using a couple, little pieces of white media, white pencil, and a piece of white oil pastel to create scenic lighting was really fun to do. So I'm going to try that with my Bayou set. Okay, it's nature set number 21, I think it is. I'm trying to think. Okay, let's see here. This is the Bayou house right here. When I think of bayous, I don't know, I think of kind of the magic hour, that hour like right before sunset or during sunset, you can do that. Or like morning light. But I also think of nighttime. I don't know. It's like that Disneyland ride in the beginning of what is it, the Blue Bayou or whatever restaurant, and you're kind of just taking off very slowly, and there's all these little sounds of crickets and whatnot. I always love that portion of the ride. It's the nothing portion, but I always loved it. It just really sets a kind of a strong atmosphere, and I don't know, it's just a really fun part of that ride. Can't get enough of it. All right, setting some cypress trees right here in the water, okay, to flank my little house here. All right. Another one right over here. This is a folded piece of a folded card, so a lot of times I use that top portion, but on this one I don't think I will. It'll just be the back side of the card, and it folds right there. Pre-folded card. Okay. We have those. Now let's put together our, well, that was kind of a surrounding area. This is how this is just an easy way to put together a scene. A lot of times, for people that, doing scenes is new. The question often is, it's like, where do you start and how do you compose? Well, for me, it's just like anything. If you have like a lot of little shapes or something like that, and you're trying to fit them into some area, I just tend to think it doesn't always have to be like the largest thing and working to the smallest thing. But it's more of a central figure type of thing, and then working to the smaller things, filler imagery. Okay. Now in this case, I mean that the hut. Anytime you do something kind of man-made, it becomes kind of the visual focal point. So you usually kind of add those types of things in first. I'm saying that with an asterisk because, I mean, if you put some little kind of animal or something into a scene, even if it's scenes 11 by 17 inches, people's eye are going to go right to that little animal. So that's not, something that you build on, I would say, from a compositional aspect. But, it's generally some of the larger types of focal point imagery, the foundation imagery. And then what you do is you fill around it with your smaller elements. It's not always the case. I mean, if you really know that, this animal is going to go here, you can certainly build around, small elements or something like that. But it's, generally an easy starting point just to build around kind of the larger ones, the more focal point oriented ones, and to just go from there. All right, let's see. Let's go with some overhanging cypress branches. All right. I just re-inked this pad, so it's going to be pretty juicy, but I am working on a matte piece of cardstock. Actually, I don't even know if it's cardstock. It's matte paper. Okay, this is not like a coated paper or anything like that, so your ink is going to absorb into the paper very quickly. So it dries by both evaporation, but a lot by absorption. Okay, it might be wet in the back of that, where that oil-based pigment ink soaks in. But this is a brilliance ink. But you can use something like a VersaFine Clair. That's one of my favorite pigment inks. It's so dark, beautiful, crisp, and detailed when you stamp out detailed imagery. But something like that would be fine too. The Brilliance ink just dries a little bit faster. It's designed to do that. Or that, I don't know, that was kind of the purpose of its creation, so that people can stamp on something like a glossy cardstock and the ink will dry. Alright, just kind of filling in. I'm using a lot of the different components off of the set. So notice I went kind of, focal point, perimeter, kind of foreground, but then this really became the foreground down here. The cypress trees are now kind of buried behind some imagery, in the form of those trees and whatnot. But now let's do some background. Cypress cluster here. I'm just wiping off the bottom of this a little bit. Okay, this one I think I'm going to want a little bit lighter, so I've wiped off a lot of the ink in the hopes that it stamps out, very lightly. Maybe it stamped out too lightly. I can barely see it. But that's alright. Okay, so we have this area filled in. I didn't take time to really stamp out things really carefully because it's just not needed. Something like this. Now, I'm not saying just to stamp things out completely haphazard or anything like that, but, for the most part, I think that looks fine. Okay. So now we have our imagery stamped in there, and our ground is our blue cardstock, or blue paper. Okay. But one of the things that I was just going to do is I was just going to go in here and define my piece just directly with that white in there. My white pencil, white oil pastel if need be. But I think I will go in here. I think I can unify this a little bit more with the use of dark ink, okay? So, going in here like so. I'm going to add a little bit more shading in here. And I'm just using a cotton ball with some more of this black ink that I stamped everything out in. Okay. I think a little bit of grayscale tones in the background will just kind of unify things a little bit more. It'll give it a little bit more kind of a visual foundation for our lighting that we'll be adding in here. So you don't need to do too much of this, okay? I'm adding some of it like at the base of the cypress tree. You can add a little bit at the base of the your cypress knees. That's those little things that are sticking out of the water like that. See that right there? It's kind of like, it's almost like you're working with charcoal in a way. That being said, you can do that with chalk or something like that if you want to. It doesn't have to be the pigment ink. But the pigment ink is kind of it's very handy, and if you have it out anyway, it's a good way to use it. Be careful that you don't put on a huge slathering of it, because you want to, reasonably control the amount of ink that you lay down. So if you lay down kind of a lighter amount of it like that and build up accordingly, it gives you a lot more control over it. Now, sometimes we can't see things, so sometimes people can't see things with like one stroke, and so you press down really hard and then they get this big, you know, super dark line. And, you can do that. It doesn't mean that it's going to be wrong, but there's just a lot more control over it if you do it more kind of incrementally. Alright, so we have our perimeter like that. I like to frame things off with quite a bit more perimeter tone to make things kind of darker on the outside edge, like that. It contains things in a little bit more, and the composition isn't so kind of loose. It kind of trains our focal point into the inside of that even more so. Let's try to go in a little bit more on the top. Ooh, that was a lot. Maybe that was too much, like I was talking about, but I'll just work with it. I'll just keep blending it in like so. All right. The thing about that right there is I have to kind of match it a little bit more on the other side, so what I'll do is I'll bring in a little bit more of a darker tone over here. Like so, and I don't know, can you see that where the composition is framed off a little bit better? Some people might see that as a spooky scene. I don't know. I don't really see it as spooky. I want to walk around that area at nighttime, I get eaten up by little mosquitoes and everything like that. But let's draw in a little bit of a moon, or, a moon. Okay, let's see if I can get it with this pen here. I thought this pen was going a little bit dry on me. I'm running out of ink. Or paint. This is a acrylic paint pen. Oh, it looks like it's going here. Thought it was out of paint. If it ever kind of feels like it's not applying, then you just kind of shake it up and get it, trigger, apply that, depress that spring in paint pens really good. It'll get going again. I've been using this one for months. This is my second one. The first one ran out of paint after a lot of usage. So, okay, that's my little moon up in the night sky, and it kind of broke out of that little, little area, but that's fine. Okay, now what I'm doing is I'm going into my little hut here, and I'm putting light into that bayou shack. Alright, so like that, and we'll do it in the water reflection as well, okay? And I have it right in the design. Those reflections are in the design, so, you can use those to take your cue from. Alright, so there we have that. That almost looks kind of cool as is, doesn't it? But it'll benefit from a lot more lighting in here. Okay, now let's see. Which one of these was my main pen? I think it was this one. This one's like a, I don't know what it is. It's like a charcoal pencil or something, white charcoal or something. I want something a little bit muted, so I'm going with this. So like a colored pencil type of thing. Okay, now where do you go in and color, tones or whatnot, okay? Well, I see this area up in the sky, so I'm thinking about some, lighting down on my water, okay? Now see this? I'm kind of just using the side of this, and I'm going with a lighter touch. I'm not pressing hard into my paper. So you see that real faint area of light like that, right? It's just almost like, imagine you're turning on the light ever so slowly. It's like a dimmer switch, okay? Let's dim it down to 3 or 5 or something like that. 100% is the bulb at maximum power, let's say. But let's dim it down to like a 5 or something like that, okay? So I'm just applying this down in a very light manner, okay? So you see that light starting to reflect off the water? So see, that's right kind of under my moon right here. Now this shack is going to be casting a shadow. Well, you don't have to worry about where that shadow is because I've drawn it into the design right here. So the area that doesn't have a shadow or reflections, you can start your kind of tone in those areas like that. All right. Still kind of maintain that kind of lighter touch. And on the imagery right here, here's the rubber here, but I've put the shadow down here at the base of the cypress tree. Here, and down here, the shadows at the base of the cypress knees, the cypress cluster, large and small, has that shadow down here, okay? So I'm not coloring in that area because it's black, but you just kind of color in the area around it. Now I've put in some streaks of black in there too, so I'm not going to be coloring that out because I'm saying that, you know, it's like a shadow or something like that. You see this area right here? How you kind of color around that? Look at that lighting on there now. So you just kind of color around the black areas, okay? And the black areas are in the design itself. So see that? I've added this right around that. That doesn't mean you can't add a little bit in there if you want to. You know, you just let your eye be the judge of it. And do trust yourself. You know, a lot of people are kind of a little skittish about that, but hold it up at arm's distance and see what you see. You know, don't kind of judge a thing by, you know, a 1-inch square area. You got to hold it out and kind of get a good idea of the overall lighting in here. And look at that coming about. Isn't that kind of fun? It's really giving the piece a lot of kind of atmosphere, don't you think? All right, now, when you get your areas established, what you can do is you can kind of define certain areas a little bit more. So maybe, you know, an area back here. I don't know, there would probably be a little bit of shadow down there, but, you know, maybe kind of an open area like that might be reflecting more light. You might get more light on the water. Back over here, you know, you can kind of keep it muted because it's behind, you know, the shack here. But let's put here. In this design, I have my little porch here. Let's put a little bit of light on that porch. The light on the porch is lighter on the design itself, so I'm just going in there and coloring that in, like so. Okay, see that porch right there? It's capturing the light from the, you know, the windows that are out there now. Okay, now look at this rooftop right here. Okay, not the front of it, but the top of it. Let's go in here and let's watch this rooftop come to life. I mean, it's not a big explosive. Boom! Look at all that lighting on there. Okay, but look at this right here. Doesn't that look like that rooftop is reflecting that lighting now with a little bit of white on it? See that right there? Now that's lighter on the design too, okay? Now I'm stamped it on a dark piece of paper here, but, you know, you can see that lighter area. Now that's a lighter area too, but I'm not going to put any light on this area because this, again, is reflecting this. So this area of the house would be darker because, you know, the back of the house would be illuminated because that moon is back there. Okay, now we have the lighting coming out of the house, yeah, but that's kind of artificial lighting, or represents artificial lighting. Now see this too, like down in the water. I mean, we can put a little bit of lighting down here. You know, it is in shadow, yeah, but you have that lighting of the you know, from coming from inside the house. So I can put a few little, you know, areas of light down here in my shadows. See that right there? Now I hold it up at arm's distance. You can see your lighting in there a little bit more. Doesn't it look a little bit more kind of atmospheric and kind of moody or something like that? Okay, now let's do, let's take a little bit of white pigment ink here. Okay, this is going to be really fun. You might be able to do it with this, but see if I kind of, you know, use some of this pencil around that moon right there. I might scratch into it. Remember, this is a hard, waxy, you know, point, so I don't want to scratch my moon up there. I also kind of, scribbled my little moon on there, kind of a little bit haphazard, so let's go in here and let's make that moon a little bit more kind of glowing in appearance, okay? Again, use a very light touch, okay? Imagine you're putting some makeup, it's like your eyeshadow or something like that, on the very soft part of your, your eyelid, okay? You don't want to, pound it into it, right? You just kind of want to put it on very lightly like that. Now look at that light moon like that. Doesn't that give that moon kind of a little bit more personality like that? All right, now, how about around these windows here too? You can put it a little bit more of a kind of a glowing light. Around your windows like that. It kind of puts a little bit of mist into the air, when you do something like that. See how they're kind of glowing? It kind of gives them a little bit of a stronger relationship to that moonlight up there too, doesn't it? Because it has the same kind of visual texture. It's kind of softer. Okay, so let's take a look and see what we can do here as far as a few little extra touches here. On my cypress trees right here, see this lighter area right here? Okay, I've already drawn in to the designs lighter areas on this tree for this very purpose. So you can just kind of observe. You don't have to kind of theorize about where something would go. You just have to make it visual. And let's add in a little bit of lighting to our cypress trees right here. And let's see if you can see any kind of difference taking place, as a result of that, additional lighting on the side. See that right there? Doesn't that look like it's, shining off that moonlight right there? I mean, I can go a little bit harder like this and apply more of this, transfer a little bit more of the wax off the, the pencil like that, where it really stands out a little bit more. Okay? Put a little bit on my cypress knees, a little kind of narrow area. This is mostly kind of the back side of the knees. Oops, sorry. Here, if I could focus it, it's so dark. But see this on the left-hand side of the knees, because the moon is to the left of these knees. Now, see these knees right here are over to the left of it, so they're being right side illuminated when I add this in here, okay? So I'll just add a little bit of white like that. Let's do it for the cypress tree in the background here too. Okay. All right, but see that right there? There's that moon kind of, coming off those objects. Look a little bit more three-dimensional. Look at these hanging Spanish mosses, okay? Now the moonlight is coming from below these ones, right? So let's try a little bit on those as well, okay? I'll put it on the side of the moss facing the moon. All right, and how about a little on the underside of some of the branches as well? Because these are being, underlit, bottomlit, right? So you can see that right there. See that right there? How it's catching that light? Now how about these ones? Where are you going to put the lighting on that hanging moss? Well, it's going to be on the right side that moss and on the underside of the branch, right? Because it's underneath, the light source is underneath these objects. Now if you put some a little bit above or below, that's not going to matter. It's not so Like you're not going to go like this on the top of the branch and say, oh my god, I messed up the scene, or something like that. But just in general, for the bulk of it, you keep it kind of consistent, and what we're doing is we're reiterating lighting, kind of direction when we do this. Alright, so that right there, it's like a Disney kind of animated cell from a, I don't know, like a movie, right? It kind of almost looks like a oil painting. Not watercolor, oil painting to me in some ways. You gotta make some areas a little bit, lighter if you want to. Let's see. I was looking at these trees in the background. Let's see if I can get a little bit of a kind of a nick cut into these. Okay, I'm just kind of doing a little bit of a little kind of a check mark on some of these branches here. On the side of the tree, facing the light again. Okay. Doesn't have to be perfect at all. By no means is this perfect. But I think it's effective though. See those little highlights on the sides of those trees right there? I largely put them on the right side of those trees. And on this side, I put it on the left side of the tree. Maybe some of these over here too. Okay, I think that is it. Kind of an atmospheric, deep space type of thing. Not outer space, but in terms of visual depth in here. And a pretty, I mean, this took a half an hour, and I'm kind of explaining things and talking about theory, but I mean, this type of thing comes about pretty fast. I consider this a quick scene, but, these pencils are pretty fun. I've been using these paint pens and everything like that, but these pencils too. And this is kind of a muted version. I mean, I didn't even get very light with any of this. It's you could go a little bit light. This is my charcoal pencil, so kind of adding a little bit more. I mean, this gives it a little bit of extra depth and texture and whatnot. But I think that looks, pretty fun in terms of I don't know, kind of a visual lighting statement, okay? It's just really fun to do. I don't know, I should do more of these more often. Problem is, I start doing something, and it's just, I don't know of too many things that aren't fun. I get kind of obsessed, in a good way, kind of visually obsessed, I should say, or creatively obsessed. With a certain technique or whatnot, using those 3mm paint pens, so much. And before that, it was like the foils and everything like that. Now this type of thing right here, you definitely want to spray seal, because this, this chalky media and the colored pencils aren't fragile by any means, but they can potentially wipe off a little bit. So go on and spray seal it if you have it, and if you don't have it, I don't know, get some spray seal in it. It works really great, and it just finishes everything off really nicely. But just really fun stuff. And look at that lighting on those trees, huh? It stands out a little bit. All right, my scene's getting really dark. Let me turn down my exposure here. Okay, let's see what this looks like. The darker the scene, I gotta kind of adjust my exposure, but doesn't that look, reasonably kind of three-dimensional? And see how just everything comes together. I didn't spend too much time with the composition or anything like that, and kind of visually blending things. There were objects with, a little bit of space in between. Maybe I wiped off too much ink off some of these. Who cares, when you start kind of adding your media to and doing all these little kind of embellishment touches with additional media and stuff, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so the big part of this is control your lighting, okay? So in the shadows, we just kind of work around the shadow areas. You can see this whole area right here is dark, right, with this image. But I come into it a little bit, but for the most part, I put my media in my open areas, okay? There was just some light, tiny little areas of light, like on my cypress trees right here. And I've just reiterated it with a little bit of light like that. So even like this right down here, I put a little bit of, colored pencil around in this area. The cypress knees, the design goes right here, and then it has a shadow down here. So for the most part, I'm just kind of adding that media, it's a little bit too much, around my objects. And see, this goes into shadow again down here, so I don't take that white into that. So I add the white in the areas that, there's not very much black or anything like that in those areas from either impressions or that additional tone that I ran in there. So you just fill in those areas with a little bit more light, but just kind of do it slowly and build it up nice and gradually. This pen right here makes, a really light mark, but this one right here does a little bit less. But like I said, I didn't have a good, like a Prismacolor or something like that. That would have been even better on here, I think, because I can control a little bit more light using that same, I don't know, this lid right here is like super hard. And those much softer ones work better. Okay, so anyways, hope you enjoyed the scene. Look at this right here, all that reflective light, but then look at this. It's not even foil or anything where it's being really reflective, but it sure has a different kind of personality from this to this. And the contrasts become much more extreme this way without so much reflected light, from my studio lights. Okay, so anyways, fun with nature set number 21. Hope you enjoyed the scene. Thanks for watching.